This is the Financial Survival Network. Now more than ever. The Financial Survival Network.
I'm Kerry Lutz. It's May 17th, 2021. Well, I hope you sold off your Bitcoin just like Elon Musk says he didn't. Do you believe that Musk didn't sell his Bitcoin prior to the crash? He has a loose grip on reality, but at least now we know why. And he can always claim to be a victim of discrimination against people with mental afflictions. And I'm going to acquire a couple myself, which will defend me against my exes, my children, and the government. Because if you're not responsible for what you say and do, you're not responsible. Are you responsible? Why don't you send us an email and let us know, kl@kerrylutz.com. In the meantime, our good friend John Rubino is with us. And John, I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Elon Musk and his, I think he went to the Trump school of Twitter expressionism, where they learn how to construct carefully constructed tweets to totally disrupt everything and make everybody pull their hair out or set their hair on fire. You know what I'm saying?
Well, he taught the crypto guys a lesson, which is do not fall in love with a 9-year-old. You know, for a while there, he was Bitcoin's biggest booster, and he probably accounted for a good 10,000 points on the run up that Bitcoin had in the last year. And now he took it all away, you know, with a couple of tweets and a couple of statements. And, you know, it's not clear whether Tesla sold its Bitcoin or not, and what the ramifications, you know, from an insider trading standpoint are with all this. I have no idea how that works, but if they did sell, that would be one reason why it went down. If they didn't sell, but they intend to sell, that's another reason why it's going down right now. So what this means for cryptos is that, you know, it's an emerging asset class in a bubble market, and the price includes a lot of action from hot money. In other words, people who really don't have a sense of what it is they're buying it because it has momentum. And as soon as it has the opposite kind of momentum, in other words, as soon as it starts to go down, they'll bail in a heartbeat. And so in bubbles, you get this kind of action from the hottest assets. And it doesn't really mean anything fundamentally about those assets. You know, when Amazon went down by 90% in the year 2000, it was still a great company. And Bitcoin is whatever it is, regardless of whether it's $60,000 per coin or $30,000 per coin, which, you know, that 30,000 is where it's headed, it looks like. So this doesn't mean anything for the ultimate future of cryptos, but it does illustrate why you need to be so careful in a bubble market, because things that seem reasonable seem very unreasonable in just a couple of days of trading in a lot of cases. So, and cryptos are part of a long list of assets that are breaking down now. You know, remember the Reddit stocks of just a few months ago? Where are they now? Who knows? Nobody hears about them anymore because they're not being bid up to crazy levels by Robinhood traders. And then the SPACs, which was the hottest concept in the stock market for a long time. They're basically moribund now. You know, they exist, I think, but they're not doing anything and they're not soaring like they were. And NFTs and now cryptos. This is how bubbles work at the peak. And you got to wonder what else is going to burst here going forward. I nominate big tech stocks. You know, there are air pockets under those guys that could lower them by 50% without any change in their company's fundamentals. So I think that's what comes next if the financial markets stay this unsettled.
Hey, you know, it's really rather shocking because we've kind of been saying the same theme and we've been berated for it. But a parabolic chart is a chart that has been with us since, go back to tulips. But even before that, I'm sure it existed where something would be perceived as being very valuable and people would bid up the price, and something would be seen as being in short supply. The price would be bid up, and then you get a parabolic move, and then all of a sudden everybody says, if I sold those tulips right now, I could make a lot of money, and they all run for the exits. Or something happens where they say, well, maybe these things aren't worth as much as I thought, and then they dump. And I've been saying this for forever, John. I mean, really, for certainly the past 3 weeks. If you send an email to me at kl@kerrylutz.com, I will send you your own personal copy of an article that I was writing that I was going to release last week, and for some reason I just didn't get around to it. But in any event, it's nothing different than what I've been saying on the show. So many of you wrote back and left comments on YouTube. Oh, you don't know cryptos. You don't understand cryptos. You just don't get it. The fact that I've bought them before, been involved with them for a decade, studied them for a decade, I don't get it. John, what is the mantra of every market when it reaches its peak and it's going to crash? Real estate always goes up. Stocks always go up. Cryptos always go up, right? All of these things always go up until they crash, right?
Yeah. And, it's important to recognize, like you were saying, that a parabolic chart contains the seeds of its own demise, because when something goes straight up, that means everybody who bought it before that straight up spike has massive embedded profits that they're going to take, right? You're going to take some money off the table when the thing you own goes straight up. And then that creates a tremendous amount of selling pressure at the top, which knocks the thing back down. And, it's nothing mystical, magical or anything. That's just the dynamic of parabolic markets. And so when Bitcoin did what it did, there was reason to expect it to correct pretty hard because there's so much profit to be taken at the top there, and that happened. And it'll happen with a lot of other things, I think, pretty soon here. I saw a thing just this morning when I was doing a website update, and I didn't get a chance to read it, but it was something to the effect that, real interest rates are now -4%. If you look at short-term interest rates in the US versus the current inflation rate. And that's a really destabilizing thing, which you want to add that to all the other sources of instability out there, but massively negative real interest rates, that's a big deal. You don't see that very often. And when you do see it, it's usually preceding some really extreme market action. So we'll have to see what that turns into. But, that could be one of the reasons for the instability in things like cryptos, just because, the markets are way out of whack in terms of real rates of return on a lot of assets.
Hey, just you got some good company on your Tesla short now, John. There's just an article that came up that Michael Burry of the Big Short fame reveals massive Tesla short and a huge inflationary bet. And he's not just saying, he's saying downside in Tesla, but upside in Alphabet and Facebook, and surging treasury yields. So you're in good company now. You front ran Michael Burry. Not many people can do that, John.
Well, he's been a Tesla bear for a while. He's actually active on the conversation board on Yahoo's Tesla page, and he's always got smart things to say. So I like being in company with people like that. So right now, Kerry, we got Michael Burry and Sam Zell on pretty much the the same side as us, which is nice, because both of those guys are pretty trustworthy in the scheme of things.
Yes, same side of the trade. And then we got our good friend Alistair McLeod, who I interviewed. It was an interview that I honestly went a bit over my head. I kind of got it, but it appears that Basel III is going to, that's the Bank for International Settlements, the central bank of central bankers. And they evidently passed a rule that's going to liquidate the LBMA, and by reference, apparently the COMEX, it's kind of ending the practice of bullion banks, what they've been doing. And we've seen them caught so many times rigging silver gold markets that now it's anytime they get caught, it's just like a parking ticket. It's just a cost of doing business. But evidently, that whole practice, those whole markets are kind of coming to an end.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. If it turns out to be true, then it's a very big deal for the gold market. Basically, the story is that the big banks that manipulate the gold market via futures contracts have been able to lie about the value of gold futures contracts on their balance sheets. In other words, they were able to treat them like real things when actually they're just make-believe with potentially zero value. And the regulators are now changing the rules to force them to tell the truth about the value of the stuff on their balance sheets. And they're saying like, oh my God, if you make us tell the truth, we can't be in this business anymore, which is a pretty amazing admission, right? And they're threatening to leave the gold futures market, which, if it happens, would shift the pricing power over to the physical market. In other words, the guys who buy and sell real gold for actual delivery would be the ones setting the prices. And within the gold market, there's the assumption that that would lead to higher prices because physical would be closer to the real value of gold, which would be much higher than it is today. And we'll see. That's probably part of why gold is up so dramatically in the last few days. It's been a really strong, really a couple of weeks for precious metals. And then today, gold is up another 20 or so bucks per ounce US. And I think part of that is that people are looking ahead and assuming that Basel III will actually happen. I think it's possible that the odds are that it happens, but I don't think it's a lock yet, because these big banks have tremendous power vis-a-vis the regulations that they have to live under. There's a huge case of regulatory capture in the money center banks. And the regulators that are supposed to be controlling them, but actually are controlled by the banks. So, there's no guarantee that any of this comes to pass. But if it does, Basel III sounds like it would be really good for gold. So stay tuned. Even if Basel III wasn't happening, we would still probably be seeing a pretty good trend in precious metals just because they had a really long correction. And towards the end of that correction, inflation started to spike. So, you've got a lot of factors that constitute a tailwind for precious metals. And Basel III is another one. So it might be one of those perfect storm scenarios where pretty much everything that can go right for precious metals are going right, which would be nice. It's about time. We saw some new record prices for the gold and silver stocks we have and for the metals.
Well, it's about time. I just want to point out that the price right now on the spot, it's up 22 and change to 1866. Silver broke 28 bucks an ounce today. So 1850 was really technical resistance for gold. It bounced up against it over and over again. Now it's broken through it pretty authoritatively. If it pulls back and goes slightly under that 1850, which is basically its 200-day moving average, if it just retreats slightly under it, that's going to be super, super bullish. But Nick Santiago called this bull run a couple of months ago when gold made that double bottom W formation. He said at the time, this is one of the strongest formations, W going topping, or W going bottoming, double bottom W formation. And you look at it, you can see it. And he was 100% right. And he had called back in September that going to have a long precious metals consolidation, and that gold would go under $1,700, which it did for about 15 minutes. And that was the end. And he called it, he said, this is it. W formation, it's going up, and he's been right. So, but $28 silver is significant. Got to see 29 and then 30. Those are the two pretty substantial resistance points. But if silver breaks 30, it's not hard to envision that it's going to a new record high. I know we're precious metals, bugs, cheerleaders, whatever. I'm looking at the charts here, and that's what the charts are saying. Break 30 bucks, And gold hitting a new high. It's only $200 away from its new high, which is, a little bit more than 10%. It's been on a tear. And combine the Basel III, I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I don't know if this increase would be happening, whether it was or not. We're not going to know it, John, until it's done. But if Alistair McLeod's right, and he's a bright guy, he's right about it, it's going to be big changes in all of the bullion markets. Hey, and let's not forget about copper either. Hit a new all-time high last week and is going higher and higher, so it would appear.
Yeah, there's a lot of momentum out there for real things, and that's really the dividing line, I think, at this point is, houses are to an extent real. Industrial commodities are definitely real. Agricultural commodities are real. Gold and silver are the real forms of money out there. They're all going up. So this long-awaited shift from financial assets to real assets is underway. We'll see how long it goes. But in the past, commodity cycles have been really long cycles. A decade or more, where you see these things go up because there's demand pressure and supply constraints. And so if that's where we are now, in late year one of a multi, maybe 10-year long cycle, then we've got a lot of fun ahead of us in the real asset world.
Yes, we do. Hey, and another great piece of news that you picked up, I missed on it, I have to admit, but I haven't been up on the news as I should be, is the World Economic Forum has canceled its 2021 meeting, which was scheduled for Singapore in 3 months' time. And the next meeting will be in 2022. I guess, John, that maybe the Great Reset, maybe the circuit breaker got jammed and it's not resetting right now. We'll have to wait till next year to find out, huh?
Well, Kerry, I don't know. I think the pattern is pretty clear. The government releases a bunch of UFO videos, and the World Economic Forum cancels its annual meeting. Draw your own conclusions, but there is a pattern there.
Coincidence for causation here, Don? I don't know, but I thought it was quite entertaining.
Yeah,
that this could actually happen. So one other thing, and I'm just going to preface this. A couple of weeks ago, I bought 100 black paper masks because I hate those blue ones, and they look so institutional. And they were $9 on, or $8 or $9 on Amazon. I think I got a $1 discount because I'm whatever. I have no idea why I pay prices the way I do on Amazon. It just seems to work out. At that point, I think I might have mentioned to you, but I mentioned to others. I said, all right, COVID is over. 100 masks, and I'm never going to use them all. And I've got them like in my car, in my house. I mean, I'm thinking of like just giving them out for Halloween next year because, I'm never going to use the things because pretty much COVID is, for all intents and purposes, certainly as a political tool, COVID's over, John. I mean, we got like the hospitalizations are dropping like a stone. Number of cases, positivity rates, all the things that the media loves to measure and torture us with, deaths, even deaths are plunging in all states, like all over. In Florida, we're like down to 2,400 people in the hospitals, which is like a nothing. It's gone. I mean, what happened to COVID? I mean, they were really planning on this thing for sticking around. They love the control, the petty tyrants, the dictators. I mean, and poor Rand Paul, I don't know what he's going to do if COVID goes away, because he's the only guy fighting for us, fighting against the totalitarian inclinations of our leaders. I mean, they can't let this thing go, John. What are they going to do?
Well, first of all, Kerry, I so hope you're right that this is over, because it's really time to get back into restaurants and start flying again. But for Rand Paul, he can always just go start picking on the Fed again, because that's what his dad used to do, and that was entertaining. So I think he'll have plenty of evil to point out in the world even after COVID is gone.
Yeah, well, it appears that it's receding at a rapid rate. That probably, if we hadn't done the social distancing and the masking and the lockdowns, probably would have hit critical mass, would have been a lot worse than it was. Perhaps, we'll never know this, but the measures could arguably have slowed down the spread, which was a plus and a minus. On the one hand, we didn't overburden the medical system as much as it could have been. On the other hand, they dragged it out for another year. And then the politics of it were just absolutely nauseating. And what these governors have done, and the carnage, economic and lives lost because of their insane policies, I hope history judges them harshly, because certainly our media has turned the other cheek.
You know, I think we learned a lot of lessons by seeing all these people, how they act under pressure. And hopefully we take the right lessons from this, you know, and we'll have to see, though. The next couple of elections will probably be, at least in part, COVID based. In other words, that's going to be a big issue, how it was handled by various people. And we'll see how it turns out. I think there's a decent chance that people will draw the right conclusions and punish the guys who should be punished and reward the ones who should be rewarded. But we will see. You never know in America these days.
No, you don't. And really, you know, if war is far too important to be left to the generals, and pandemics definitely should never be left to the doctors, because the doctors will just have you like sterilizing. So many things that they told us were true, John, weren't. Oh, you know, you can get COVID from a doorknob. You can get COVID outdoors just as easily as indoors. Masks help? No, masks don't help. Yeah, wear 2 masks. So much of what they've told us just turned out to be wrong, and their death models were totally wrong. And that was the whole basis for the lockdowns. At the very least, put aside the mask mandates, which we all despise, but there might be some validity to. But certainly to the lockdowns, we can definitely know that they cost lives needlessly, and that economic disaster that resulted from them, and it's continuing to go on. I don't know if you've been watching the news out of Canada, but God forbid, you need to say it that way, but heavens forbid that you want to go be a preacher in a church or something, and you're going to like go out and have your flock join you. That's grounds for immediate arrest and incarceration in Canada. And hey, if you want to open a deli, keep it open for the people so they can get stuff to eat. You know, you're facing serious jail time there and humongous fines. So a lot of what's happened here is just beyond the pale. But hey, somehow we made it through. I think it's virtually complete. They were saying between April and June with the vaccines, not like a real fan of them, but obviously there's a lot of people that have been helped by it, and hopefully the reward was greater than the risk. I think that's kind of proving itself. But when we look down in a couple of weeks, if the trends continue, it's kind of going to be COVID. What was COVID? And then we'll be on to the next thing, and whatever the Kardashians are doing next to garner attention. COVID will soon be forgotten, because we have a very short attention span in the modern world now. And it isn't much longer than a YouTube video, John.
I think inflation will grab our attention pretty soon, you know, and make us forget everything that came before. So 2022 is liable to be an equally crazy year in a completely different way. But that'll give us a lot to talk about, at least.
Oh, no, we're going to do fine. We're not going to be running out of topics anytime soon, and neither is Rand Paul. He has his work cut out for him, but he won't have Mr. Dr. Fauci to kick around anymore, and we won't be watching that guy on TV, except he'll be doing the victory lap. We beat COVID because you listened to me. We beat it. And, you know, he's going to be claiming credit for everything. And hey, let him have his swan song. The sooner they get rid of that guy, get him out of the government, the happier we're all going to be. If we never see him in another press conference, it'll be all too soon. That's my prediction. But you make your own decisions. Just remember, hodling is not necessarily a pathway to acquiring and increasing wealth. So on that note, make sure you go over to John's site, which of course is dollarcollapse.com. Sign up for his newsletter, check out his work. He's prolific. Send me your emails. I'll share them online next time with John next week. And that's it for this week, John. We'll see you next week.
See you, Kerry.
The Financial Survival Network.